Welcome to the Carriker Chronicles, the People Show. Checking the pulse of Husker Nation. Ladies and gentlemen, it's been a while since I've done a show like this. I love doing interviews. I love bringing people on my show and hearing Frank Solich's story and talking to Malachi Coleman and hearing his story. If you missed those interviews, go back and check them out. Pick up Malachi's book. He's donating the proceeds, to the foster care system and kids in foster care. I love doing that type of stuff. But you know what? It's been a while since I just sat down here and chatted with you fine folks, me and you, one-on-one or one-on however many people are watching this show, probably at least 3 or 4 folks. I missed this. So let's light this candle, shall we? I honestly believe, again, Kool-Aid aside, whatever your favorite flavor is, I love red. Not just because it's Nebraska's colors, I just love red. By the way, made at Hastings, Nebraska. I don't know if you knew that. That's where it was developed and originated and created from. That was a pretty cool random fact, I thought. But Kool-Aid aside, I really believe that Matt Rhule's having a big offseason. Okay, now before I dive into that, all right, smash that like button. One of my former teammates, a Husker great, all right, Matt Rhule, right, a former team captain, freshman All-American, 3-time All-Big 12 selection, 3rd-team All-American, Huskers all-time leading tackle, 432 career tackles. Okay, and I have this memory from when I was a true freshman. I redshirted. We're watching film, and he had this gigantic cast on his hand, and I forget what the audibles were. As a true freshman, I probably was lost at sea and had no idea what the defensive audibles were, but he'd run around doing this with that gigantic cast in the air. That's one of my images or memories that I have in my mind of Matt Rhule. But again, Nebraska's all-time leader in career tackles with 432. He's been coaching for about a decade. Okay, he was just hired by the Atlanta Falcons as their inside linebackers coach. Great teammate, great coach, great dude. Matt Rhule, smash that like button to show Barrett some love. Now, he's reunited with Raheem Morris. All right, now Raheem was in D.C. when I was there. And here's my memory of Raheem Morris. I'm in the training room one day. I'm icing something because that's just what happens when you play in the trenches. And we get in this debate. Okay, and this was years ago, like 10 years ago. Like, if you had an all-time NBA draft, who would you pick number 1? Magic Johnson, Larry Bird, LeBron James, Michael Jordan. Raheem stood up in front of everybody, about 30 guys in that training room, and said, I'd take LeBron over Jordan. You got to keep in mind, this is 10 years ago. So Raheem Morris is a great football coach, a great dude, love him. But in my mind, he's the guy that would pass over Michael Jordan in an NBA draft. What? Love you, Raheem, but what? Okay. Now, you want to show Nebraska men's basketball some love because I do believe that they are NCAA tournament bound, and I'm going to be covering that team on the ticket as well as here on the Chronicles as well. And if you don't want to miss any of that coverage or you just haven't done so yet, hit that subscribe button. All right. And I want to do at least one show going forward a week, at least one show a week, if not twice, which is basically what I've been doing throughout the off season. But I want to do at least one, if not 2 shows a week throughout the off season. My next show, National Signing Day on Wednesday. Yes, it still matters. Let's be real. The main signing day was in December, but there's still some interesting things to talk about per National Signing Day for Nebraska come this Wednesday, so don't miss that show. All right, and I am going to say my high school talk as far as the offseason things that Matt Rhule's done well so far this year. I'm going to say my high school football talk for Wednesday and that show. Now today, things I haven't addressed much yet on this show so far this offseason has been really transfer portal needs, and impact players that Matt Rhule has brought in, most importantly at key positions of need that we had. A new quarterback coach / offensive coordinator, which I'm going to get to in a little bit, followed by, I'm going to chat just a little bit about other Husker sports at the end of this show as well. But let's start off with some of the team needs that Nebraska football had entering this offseason. Positional needs, wide receiver, very talented, young, fast wide receiver group here at the University of Nebraska. You got guys like Malachi Coleman, Jalen Lloyd. They played and started a lot of games as true freshmen last year. Very bright futures. That goes without saying. But this group as a whole is very inexperienced. It's a wide receiver room where nobody has really proven to be consistent just yet. We're very, very young. So that's one position that stood out to me coming into this offseason. Number 2, offensive line. All right, now, you may remember the offensive line got better throughout the year, especially run blocking. Pass blocking was still iffy. But the run blocking did improve, and as you recall, Donovan Raiola got a $175,000 pay raise. He signed through 2024. Now, the improvement on the O-line needs to continue. That goes without saying. Okay, but when you get guys like Bryce Benhart, much improved at right tackle. Okay, and you got Ben Scott, who's a very good center, both choosing to come back to Nebraska. All right, you got guys like Justin Evans-Jenkins, Henry Latowski, who saw a lot of playing time at guard. Okay, you still need another guard in that mix, I think, if for starting competition and for depth as well. We got just a smidge banged up on the offense last year. Yeah, just a tiny bit. So I think bringing another offensive lineman, especially at the guard position, bringing in wide receivers, okay, was something we needed to do. And that's obviously something we did. I'll get to those guys here in a minute. Okay, but for competition at the starting spot, also adding depth. Now you look at the defense. I mean, you could argue up to 10 starters returning. Now, some guys started early on and got banged up. Some guys started later on. Majority of the year-long starters are back. You could argue up to 10 potential starters are back. Okay, depending on how you want to look at that. But the linebacker spot, okay, was a spot that we needed some help in. All right, somebody who could immediately step in and help us. Again, we had a near top 10 total defense last year, number 11 in the country, number 8 rush defense, gave up 92 rush yards per game, number 13 in the country in points allowed, 18 points per game. And we're seriously going to miss guys at the linebacker spot like Luke Reimer, Nick Henrich, okay, guys like that. Okay, we have all Big Ten type players. And Ty Robinson, Nash Huntmaker at the first level of the defense. Also, Malcolm Hartzog, okay, Isaac Gifford, Tommy Hill in the third level of the defense. That linebacker spot, we had some guys going, and we needed some guys, or at least a guy, to come in and be an impact starter player for us. Now, first things first, and I've mentioned this before, but I'm going to cover it again. Nebraska's player retention rate has been phenomenal. You got other Big Ten schools like Indiana, Purdue, Michigan State, had well over 20 players leave their program. In fact, tops in the nation. Okay, Ohio State was hit hard. You had other really good programs like Georgia hit hard by the transfer portal. Of course, all they do is recruit 5 and 18-star players, so they just step right up, right? All right, Florida got hit hard by the transfer portal. SEC-type schools, okay? Washington, they lost 15 players. There's no longer a Power 5 conference. This is Power 4. 15 players were taken by other Power 4 conference schools. They only have 2. This is the team that played for the national title last year. Only 2 returning starters on their entire roster coming back next season. Good luck joining the Big Ten, my friends. All right. Now, Nebraska only lost a handful of players. And outside of Chubba Purdy and Jeff Sims, okay, and I do think they were major contributors last year. You could argue Jeff lost his job. Great dude. You could argue Chubba only started a couple games at the end of the year, but I would have said he had the inside track to start in this year had he stayed. Outside of those 2 guys, not a lot of major key contributors aren't back. Most of the key contributors are back and chose not to leave. So first, that's what Matt Rhule wants to do. He wants to retain talent, build and develop players, okay? So we didn't need a ton of transfer players to come in first and foremost. All right, Colorado has brought in over 80 players last year. Okay, they're at 51, I believe, this year. Number 1 transfer portal class in America, brought in like 92 O-linemen, because that math adds up. Okay, Ole Miss, they have the number 2 transfer portal class in the country, and they've got like the number 1 outside edge rusher, the number 1 this, the number 1 that, and that's awesome. Phenomenal. More power to you. That's just not Matt Rhule's plan, okay? He's executing his plan well, to bring in young guys, to retain them, to develop them, to build a culture, to build something from the bottom, the ground up, that will withstand more effectively over time, honestly. Okay, so Nebraska currently has the number 28 transfer portal class in the country. I got to be honest, I was surprised it was that high. We just don't have a whole lot of players coming in, although they are very good players, in my opinion. Now, that doesn't mean much to me because Rhule's plan calls for less transfer portal targets and quality over quantity, so to speak. The focus is on key transfer portal players and targets at positions of need, and that's exactly what he addressed. All right, I talked about wide receiver position. We brought in Jamal Banks, who's 6'4", Isaiah Nair, who's 6'3". Now, you could argue Jamal is probably the number 1 transfer portal player that we brought in for our team because he's the most proven player at arguably the biggest position of need, which is wide receiver, Isaiah Nair. Now, this is a guy who at Wyoming, when he entered the transfer portal after he left Wyoming, was one of the top wide receivers in the transfer portal in the country that year. He went to Texas expecting to be the number one guy, got hurt, got the knee injury, was never quite the same. I'm hoping he's had a year, he's had time to recover, and he can get back to being that guy, because if he can, we brought in not one, but potentially two starting wide receivers for the Huskers coming up next season. Now, I already mentioned Jalen Lloyd. This is a young guy with elite speed. I already mentioned Malachi Coleman. We all know about Malachi. Again, check out that interview if you missed it, because his backstory is even more awesome than I already thought it was. Great dude, great family. Got to know them a smidge. But these are guys, I mean, Malachi started 6 games for us last year. Doesn't mean he has a ton of experience, but we've got 2 to 3 to 4 wide receivers in this wide receiver competition. So it's going to be a great competition which forces guys to get better. It also adds depth. And Matt Rhule is not really a 4 wide receiver type of offense kind of guy, or even 3, but he did spread it out more at Baylor. It all just depends on what he has. I'm just excited to see this wide receiver offseason battle. All right, offensive line, Micah Mazuka, the Bazooka. All right, 6'5", 335 pounds. This is a guy that started at Baylor. He started at Florida. He almost came to Nebraska through the transfer portal a year ago. This dude's a road grader, a big, physical, nasty dude. Again, I like to call him Mazuka, the Bazooka. All right, here's a little bit more on my friend. Nebraska's O-line just got bigger and better. This is my tweet that I put out a while back. Okay, Micah Mazuka announced today that he'll be transferring to us. He started 10 games each of the last 2 years for Florida and Baylor. In 2023 at Florida, okay, back then he was 6'5", 325. Micah started at right guard in 11 of 12 games and had 743 snaps. In 2022 at Baylor, all right, he played in 11 games, had 10 starts, and graded out as the second best guard in the Big 12 according to Pro Football Focus, and the 42nd best guard in the nation. At run blocking specifically, he graded as the best in the conference and 15th best in the nation. All right. Now, he does have to get better at pass blocking. Just got to be more consistent. He shows really good pass pro at times. Just got to do it consistently. All right. You go to linebacker. The biggest, I don't want to say only need we had on defense, but the biggest need we had on defense. Okay, Stephon Thompson transfers in. All right. And Stephon's another linebacker who played 3 seasons under Tony White at Syracuse. Stephon has played in 36 career games, 169 career total tackles, 20 TFLs, and earned a starting job as a true freshman in 2020. 6'1", 248 pounds, and has 2 seasons of eligibility remaining. This is a guy who's not only played in the 3-3-5, he's not only got starting experience, he not only earned a starting job as a true freshman, he did it under Tony White. Okay, this is potentially a multi-year starter in the middle of our defense. All right, you look at the running back position, not really a position of need, honestly, but running back Dante Dowdwell, okay, probably heard of him, transferred from Oregon. Now, again, we didn't really need a running back, but here's the deal. Oregon has a rare situation of 2 stud running backs that were both near 1,000-yard rushers, both coming back. So it's a crowded running backs room, okay? So when you got guys like Gabe Irvin in our running back room, a guy who has started for 2 different coaching staffs, okay, big, fast, explosive, powerful guy. Hopefully he can stay healthy. You got a guy like Ramir Johnson who had started for us 3 years ago. I don't know if people remember that, but he's got that beast, that burst and speed out of the backfield. He could be a starter for a lot of teams in the country, in my opinion. Emmett Johnson, who was our starter a good portion of the year last year as a freshman. And then Quentin Ives, I've mentioned it. Matt Rhule brings him up consistently for a reason. Coaches don't do that if they don't like you. Dante Dowdwell becomes available. And even with this loaded running back room, a guy like that big, powerful, Big Ten, downhill, Matt Rhule type of offense running back, you just can't say no. He's that with explosiveness, which you don't always find, I might add. Now, I will say this, 5 running backs like that, I don't expect us to have these same 5 backs going into the fall, and that's okay. Somebody's going to hit the portal. That's fine. Okay, I wish them nothing but love and the best. Okay, another potential position of need that I had not mentioned yet was DB, and it really depends on where Malcolm Hartzog plays next year. Okay, you think about our defense. We had a lot of Big Ten performers. We had a lot of guys who played well. And you think about Malcolm Hartzog, who started games at corner. He started at safety. So you don't really know where he's going to play exactly next year. So maybe DB is a position of need potentially. So Bly Hill, this is a guy who's really flown under the radar. 6'3", 385 pounds, a young corner. Okay, this is the type of guy that can go toe-to-toe with a tall wide receiver. Okay, maybe not an elite fast wide receiver, but a tall wide receiver. Okay, he's also a guy who could potentially move to safety. Now he's a little light, but potentially he could go there. In my opinion, I've talked about diamonds in the rough that Matt Rhule's brought in this offseason. He's one of those guys I see. I think he's flown under the radar. I think he's a prototypical Matt Rhule, bring in overlooked, okay, developmental type guy that he could turn into something. All right, depending on how hard he works and how hard he's able to develop himself. Okay, and I think he's flown under the radar because he played at St. Francis and they just don't get talked about a lot. All right, real quick. If you're a diesel mechanic, a CDL driver, a concrete finisher, looking for work in the Omaha metro area, DPS Concrete Construction is the employer for you. Check them out at dpsconstruction.net. Jason Armstrong's a phenomenal owner. He demands the best from his employees. He takes care of them, and they do phenomenal work. If you're looking for work in that area, check out dpsconstruction.net. Now, a couple more positions of need potentially. Okay, left tackle and quarterback. Now, at left tackle, we've got Turner Corcoran, and we've got Teddy Prohaska. Okay, Corcoran started a lot of games. Prohaska has started games, and I love Teddy, honestly. Okay, he's just got to stay healthy as well. All right, I just think adding one more guy into that competition, particularly at left tackle, could add depth and could make everybody raise their game just a little bit. I don't know that it's imperative. I just think it would be helpful. Now, I personally think we need a vet quarterback receiver. Most likely, I prefer a senior, okay? All right, now, I'm going to do a show. I'm not going to dive into that much today. That's just my opinion. A lot of people that I've talked to disagree with me, so I'm going to do a show on that here in the next week or two. All right, so keep your eye out for that. Now, we also hired a new quarterbacks coach and co-offensive coordinator in Glenn Thomas. All right, from the Steelers, a necessary offensive move, in my opinion. I'm going to talk about Glenn more in that quarterback show I'm going to do in the future, but he has a very good history coaching quarterbacks, and his style of offense, okay, is a little bit more up Rhule's alley. Now Satterfield can coach the tight ends, which is really what Rhule wanted him to do originally. Okay, this is a big hire, a big deal in a coaching area that we needed to get better at. And so I think this is a big deal as well. Obviously, flipping Dylan Raiola from Georgia to Nebraska was big time. Now, I did see recently where some Husker fans got upset, okay, because Dylan Raiola dropped dramatically in On3's recruiting rankings. At one point throughout his recruiting journey, shall we say, he was the number one player in America, then he was the number one quarterback, then he was the number one pocket passer. Now, according to On3, he's the 71st overall ranked player. Some fans got a little bit upset about this. Some think it's because he flipped from Georgia to Nebraska, even though he's still very highly rated, period, and hasn't really moved much in other recruiting rankings. Okay, to be fair, Carter Nelson, who played 8-man football at Ainsworth, has climbed in On3's recruiting rankings. Okay, my reaction, who cares? They're one of us now, and people are just funny sometimes. That's all I got to say about that. All right, couple of thoughts on other Husker sports. All right, shout out to Nebraska Wrestling. They're the number 6 team in the country, 9-1, and Polar Bear Nash Hutmaker is now 4-1 so far on the year. That's pretty cool. The guy took 3 years off from wrestling. He's lost 30 plus pounds. Then he's going to have to put weight back on to play football. Okay, and I asked Mark Manning, the wrestling coach, all about this on my interview with him about a week and a half ago on 93.7 The Ticket. You can go check it out on their YouTube page. I also interviewed Nebraska women's basketball coach Amy Williams on 93.7 The Ticket as well. You can see that on their YouTube page if you want to check that out. Nebraska women's basketball is currently 14-8 and taking on Michigan in their next game. Show them some love. All right, ladies and gentlemen, love and support for them. Now, men's basketball, 16-7. They have 2 top 10 wins on the year. You probably know this, but they beat number 1 Purdue and number 6 Wisconsin at the time. They had number 14 Illinois beat on the road. Nebraska basketball, the men had a great performance, a great effort. The refs, not so much. All right. And they're still looking for their first road victory, but I have a feeling they're going to get it here in the near future. Now, this is a team that absolutely should make the NCAA tournament, in my opinion. Okay. And a couple of random facts. All right. This is kind of a bunch of stuff that I haven't talked about in a while, kind of all put into one show, and hopefully you enjoy it just a smidge. All right, 2 random facts. There are currently 21 former Husker football players on NFL active rosters. All right. Number 2, I'm going to put up this pic of Dwayne "The Rock" Johnson, okay, back when he played college football. Now, I kind of randomly came across this pic, and I'm a big fan of The Rock. All right. But if you're a wrestling fan at all, you know he just stole the main event of WrestleMania from the American Nightmare, Cody Rhodes. All right. Now, I got some questions for you fine folks at home. Number 1, simple questions, simple answers. Let me know yes or no to all these below. Number 1. Again, Kool-Aid aside, do you believe that Matt Rhule is having as big of an offseason so far as I believe he is? All right. Number 2, again, just say yes or no to all these. I'm not addressing the portal quarterback situation for the Huskers in this show just yet. So with that aside, does Nebraska have other positions of need to fill yet, like I believe, like the left tackle? Do you agree with the left tackle spot? Do you agree? And it's really just about having more competition and potential depth. Corcoran's talented, got to be consistent. Prohaska's shown he can play well, just got to stay healthy, okay? Do you believe, like I do, that maybe there's some other positions that we have of need? Maybe left tackle is one of them. Maybe you disagree. Well, let me know. Last but certainly not least, all right, will Nebraska basketball get in the NCAA tournament? Because in my opinion, they absolutely should. The real question is this. That's actually not the question. The real question is this. You're probably aware we're the only Power 4 basketball program without an NCAA tournament win. So here's my question. Yes or no? Will Nebraska basketball get their first ever NCAA tournament win this year? All right, ladies and gentlemen, I hope you enjoyed that. If you have nothing better to do with your time, you can always check me out on Facebook and at Twitter. I hope you have a phenomenal week. Check out the show on Wednesday. Go Big Red. And always remember to throw the ball.